Amazing news for Tesla investors. Tesla's full self-driving is coming sooner than all of us thought. With our excitement of the recent release of FSD version 12.3 that has shown major improvements in solving many edge cases, now comes news directly from Elon Musk himself that we should expect updates roughly every 2 weeks. It's the rate of progress that is now possible when you combine a neural net system with more compute. Elon says that by April or May, FSD should be shining bright. We've got Hans Nelson joining us, and Hans has his own YouTube channel called Hans C. Nelson. Welcome, Hans.
Thanks for having me, Herbert.
This is it. We've had so many videos on FSD this week and the previous week. It's just progress is happening so fast. So this news is actually quite important. You've got, Omar saying there's no need to hyper-analyze the FSD rollout. Meditate, center yourself, clear your mind, and it'll come to you. He's just joking around, of course, because everybody's just getting so hyped and trying to ask, when is FSD and how long will it take? Elon responded to him. He said this: 3 significant improvements to FSD will roll out roughly every 2 weeks. Should be really shining bright by late April or early May. What I love about this is that he's being very, very specific. 3 significant improvements. So he's clearly in the pipeline. Now it's funny that he says every 2 weeks. We know what he means when he says every 2 weeks. But then by saying, April or May, so it's, yet another prediction of his. But this is like a couple months. So, when you try to say something's going to happen a year from now, you've got lots of wiggle room. It might be 2 years, might be 3 years. But if it's like April or May, I don't know, man. That seems like it's going to happen. What's your interpretation of this?
Well, obviously, Elon likes to be optimistic about timelines, and especially, 2 weeks is some number of weeks. We don't know if it's actually 2 or not. But, saying April or May means he, in this context, is speaking literally. He thinks actually 2 weeks. And we have seen that, the length of time that it was from 12.2 rolled out and to when they started rolling out 12.3 was not that long. I think it was longer than 2 weeks, but it was relatively quickly. And so, I would kind of put error bars on that of at least 2 weeks per. And so, maybe we'll see one in 3 weeks, and then another one will take 2 weeks, and then another one would take 4 or 5 weeks. And so overall, I am just kind of handicapping my expectations instead of saying, May at the latest, like Elon saying. I would be surprised if May is the earliest that we get all of these things out. And it'll probably be sometime mid to late summer where we get all 3 of those major improvements rolled out. But man, the speed of progress is so fast, and for them to have rebuilt basically the entire FSD stack from the ground up, starting in December of 2022 and releasing here at the beginning of 2024, means that they are developing this piece of software at a blistering pace. And when he's saying that, there are 3 sets of improvements, that means that they have already been testing all 3 of those internal to the company now for some time. And so this is not saying that, they're working on one and hopefully they can get it out 6 weeks from now, like the third one of those 3, whatever improvements they are. That means that they've been working on all of these now for a significant amount of time. And it's just a matter of how many issues do they run into once they push to the fleet. Because that's the thing that you never know when you're actually deploying software into the real world, is there's an unknown number of unknowns, and you just can't fully anticipate what those are going to be. And so that's where your timelines get all boogered up. So we'll see in length of time, but I'm really excited about what he's saying as far as improvement, because he said that 12.3 was a major upgrade from 12.2.1. And based on Bradford's experience with 12.2.1 and then now with 12.3, I think that that is a very valid thing for him to say. So for him to say, like, if we can make a similar sized jump that we made from 12.2 to 12.3 with the next 3 releases, even if that is over, 3 months instead of 1.5, man, we will be in an incredible place. And I think what all of this looks like at this point in time is that by the end of the year, the state of the FSD stack is going to be very, very close to our ultimate hopes and ambitions for Tesla's level 2, like the end state of Tesla's level 2 system.
Yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to show a really detailed table from Edge Case, all the different improvements and which ones we're going to watch. But three significant improvements every 2 weeks. And he did say, right, that the car should be able to do reverse soon. So that could be one improvement.
Yep.
Smart summon, right? And reverse smart summon. He called it summon and banish. I don't know
Banish.
why he
Yep.
would call it banish. This is when you want to, the car is parked and you say, hey, I want to summon, come to me in a parking lot, or banish, which is, I guess, you park the car, you it dropped you off, and then you let the car find its own parking spot. And it's amazing to watch these videos from all these beta testers showing how the car is just searching for a parking lot, going around the block, and then finding a spot and going there. It's just brilliant.
Hmm.
So there's going to be more of these, but yeah, you and others have said this, right? Which is, if we saw that neural net version 12, which is this end-to-end neural net, was going to improve every 2 weeks, not just every month or really long, that's what you're looking for. Because if it can
Yep.
be, it's this pace of improvement that matters more than necessarily, oh, it still can't do this, it still can't that. That's what you're looking for. And then he's saying shining bright by late April or early May. Okay, let's hope this is the case. But boy, this is not long for us to find out
Hmm.
if he's right. Michael Dell said this, super impressive. Tesla FSD version 12.3 is like a human driver. It is, speaking like Yoda would. And Elon says version 12.4 is another big jump in capabilities. Our constraint in training compute is much improved. So here, Elon's already talking about 12.4, let alone a 12.3, dot release, or 12.3.1, that kind of stuff, right?
Hmm. Yes. And, uh, we can take this back to what he said, 3 major improvements coming out over the next 6 weeks, we'll call it. I think what that sounds like to me is that they have actually passed all 3 of those models through full training runs on whatever their supercomputer, um, training cluster is. It's going to be some amount of NVIDIA, it's going to be some amount of Dojo. They've done those full training runs, and now each one of those releases is just in the quality control phase where they're doing extensive testing and they're doing whatever fine tuning that's necessary of these main models. But this sounds to me like the Dojo part or the NVIDIA, whatever that supercomputer training cluster looks like, that is up and running now to the point where, and that is a good, thing to think about with that 2-week cycle, is that if they're able to do full training runs on the base model that they're using for each successive version of this every 2 weeks, then there may be some models that maybe take longer to fully deploy if they discover weird edge cases in the real world. Um, but the overall rate of change of the system is going to be dictated by the speed of those main training runs. And that right there is an incredibly exciting observation.
All right, let's take a look at this beautiful, beautiful chart from Edge Case. Edge Case is one of the beta testers, and he's been following it from the early releases. And he created this table. Um, I don't know if you can see this, but basically you've got. Let me screw in here a little bit. So you got 10.69, 11.3.6, 11.4.2, 4.4, 12.2, and then 12.3. And he's basically following what the changes are. So it's a pretty incredible table. I love it. Right. And you can see the 12.3 is smooth and prompt lane changes. It's actually went down in terms of proper speed for track of traffic flow and posted speed limits, which is a surprise to me. I thought quite a number of the beta testers were saying that now you can turn on the feature that lets a beta to be able to follow traffic. Do you have any comment on that one?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the issue is there. Seems like this is a new feature, and so it could be kind of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That now it has extra capabilities that the previous systems didn't necessarily have, and that ability to adapt speed is not dialed in just right yet. But I would expect that at this point in time, since one of the problems with 12.2 is that it was a little bit overconfident in some scenarios. And so for them, like, I can understand them not feeling comfortable pushing that out widely to the fleet, that they wanted it to be more conservative. And so one of the specific complaints I've heard about that proper speed is that it's going too slow on surface streets, and it's actually going below the posted speed limit. And that makes sense to me, while they're trying to make sure that this version 12 of FSD is operating safely as possible. And then they can kind of work that up slowly and kind of bring it back towards
Mhm.
a speed that is close to the speed limit, once they're sure that it's not going to do an aggressive maneuver that's going to get the system and the driver into trouble.
Another one is comfortable stopping and accelerating. It's looked like it got worse from what he thought it was. So that's interesting. And then the things that it does
It
did better. Mhm.
I would say that on the comfortable stopping and accelerating, it probably depends on what he's citing there. One of the things that old Mars blog, or Omar, pointed out was that those flashing stoplights, that it would like stop and go because it was getting confused. I don't know if that could be the root cause of that. Or the other thing is, if people don't like confident acceleration, maybe they would score it lower, because that's one of the things that I definitely noticed on 12.2, is that when it decides to go, it does actually go. And if you like it to feel more timid in its acceleration, that maybe you would score it a little bit lower on version 12 than on version 11.
And then you can see all the places it got better: proper turn signaling, merging onto highways, consistent right turn on red, slow down. They're the same as previous version or better.
Even, well,
Mhm.
yeah, consistent unprotected left turns there. That's a very important one. And it didn't get into the green, but it is improved. So it was sixes and then now it's a seven. So
Okay.
that's very good.
And then proper behavior and flashing red lights seem to have been broken, according to him.
Yep.
So you can see this. It's great. You can see his tracking. Whether or not we
But
agree with
yield
his
signs is much
analysis.
better.
Mhm.
Like, that was a huge improvement that went from, I think, 2 or 3 up to 7
Mhm.
on,
So
right there in the middle, where it's the 4 threes in a row and then 2 sevens at the end is
yeah,
proper behavior. Yeah.
right here. Okay.
Yep.
So I mean, he's tracking it from his perspective. It's his version, but it's great. At least it's like one person's opinion, and then you take a look at
Mhm.
his survey key. Right, one is never successful. We saw a bunch of twos. Most of the time, not successful. Once in a while, it works, and then you got the six and sevens, works more often than not, and then eight to nine most of the time successful, and then perfect. 10 is a perfect. Never fails. So it's still got work to do, but boy, you can see the improvement, and I'm curious to see how this changes over time. Another thing that people were thinking is, when can we expect version 12.3 in Canada? And Omar said already launched. What's your thoughts on this?
From all of the comments that I've seen, I don't know of any confirmed 12.3 versions that are active in Canada. That's not to say that there aren't, but I would be surprised if there were. We still see, like, they just rolled 12.3 out to the East Coast of the United States. I can, if I was in Tesla's shoes, I would want to kind of roll this out in stages, and I would probably cover most of, if not the entire United States, before I went to Canada, just because you're going to be dealing with, just some differences in the laws and the road markings, and everything gets a little bit more complicated once you introduce the neural net into a new environment. And Canadian roads are going to be very, very similar to the US, but they're not going to be identical. And I wouldn't want to add that extra layer of complexity to my rollout until I had already deployed to the entire United States personally. So, I don't know if that is what Tesla's going to do, but that's where I would expect to see.
Rohan Patel, a Tesla executive, did say, though, that he's gotten Elon's approval to roll this out in Canada, FSD beta. But like you're saying, maybe it's a certain timing. We'll see on that one. But let's take a
Mhm.
look at this. This is a post by Cern Basher. He's fantastic with business cases. And I'm going to go through his entire post and then we'll go back one by one line. So he says this: in technology, it's all about progression. Tesla's FSD has progressed. Sure, slower than what was promised, as the problem has proven to be very difficult, but progression nonetheless. The thing about progression is that eventually you get there if you don't give up. Okay. Now, then what is the value of FSD? So this is the most important question, right? How do you value FSD? Right now, no one, some people are putting in there thinking that it's going to happen, but it's years out. Well, he says it's a series of call options that are getting closer and closer to their respective strike prices, the point at which the call option is in the money. I guess it's just one way to look at the milestones. As FSD improves, possibly the stock should jump up because it's achieved something that's possibly going to impact sales or increase uptake of FSD or some sort of revenue number, or just some perception by the public. So what are they? Here's what he thinks. So and few people think of it this way, which is why I like it, right? It's like these milestones. Don't just think of FSD as robotaxi. Is robotaxi here or not?
Yep.
Think of it as steps. So first, does it make the car driving a car more enjoyable and less tiring? I guess, yeah, I don't know if this will move the stock, but it could possibly, like, people, that's all it did.
It
Maybe people will buy, a little bit more people will buy the car.
Yes, so a couple of anecdotes. I know a number of people who have FSD, and they say they will not take a road trip without having
Yeah.
FSD
Yeah.
because it does make the process of driving long distance very much less tiring. Farzad has said that, I've heard that various places. So that does have some value. I think right now that value is less than the value or the price of the subscription and the price of purchasing FSD
Not worth it.
outright at
Yeah.
this point in time overall for most people. And so that's why you see this take rate being so low. And so, I would kind of say that we're already, some of these strike prices are below the current price of FSD.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
there's a caveat to that I think that Tesla is doing this on purpose, as we've talked about before, that they right now, they just don't want too many people to be using the system who are going to use it carelessly. And so they don't want everyone to experience how much more enjoyable and less tiring driving can be with FSD because they're not comfortable that those people will use it safely. Once the software quality improves to the point where they can be comfortable with allowing even careless drivers to experience the system, then they can actually lower those prices and let the market do price discovery on what is the value of making the car more enjoyable and less tiring. Because it's definitely, like to CERN's point, the value of that is not zero. It does have significant value. And as we, the further down this list that we get, the more value that accrues.
Yeah, agreed. So it's there, but it's not enough. I think 2 and 3, I think they're separate, but they're similar. So if the car is a safer car and saving lives, so it's just level 2 ADAS service, but it's makes it much safer, because how many other cars have 8 cameras, and how many of them can actually make the car safer, allowing someone to drive their car without paying full attention? You're still driving. But for example, when I'm driving with FSD beta, I do feel safer, because let's say I'm on I'm going to turn left on a three-way, three stop signs, right? And T road. And then as I'm turning left, I'm going to look to my right just to make sure that there's no car coming. And I feel much more comfortable knowing that this car has cameras, making sure that it's turning left properly. That quick look to the right.
Yep.
Versus if I was driving without it, I'd be like left, right. Anyways, making car a safer car and saving lives. I think that, let's say that it never gets to robotaxi ever, but this car is the most safest car in the world. Okay. And you are still driving it, but it's safer. You can't tell me that won't increase sales of the car, and maybe even paying, maybe not $200, but certainly a certain amount of money per month to make the car safer.
I don't think that Tesla will charge anything to give you all of the safety features. Obviously, they're not doing that now. So where I would locate too is that's all the active safety features. And I think that is just going to be baked into the value of the car because it's always going to be included by Tesla, and they're always going to do everything that they can to make sure that every single Tesla is as safe as possible, regardless of whether or not the car is driving itself or whether it's the human driving. And the ability of the software to improve the safety of the vehicle is definitely going to improve with the functionality of FSD. So the value of the ability of Tesla to make the car safer based on the work that they're doing in software right now is going to increase over time as well.
Okay, well then another milestone that I've actually not heard people talk about, number 4, is allowing someone to drive their car without paying attention. So this is you still driving. This is not robotaxi. You're still driving, but you know that you don't have to pay a lot of attention, even though you're still driving. And then,
This is essentially the idea of level 3 driving, where
mm,
you don't have to pay attention at all times, but if the car then alerts you, then you do have to pay attention. Like, you have to be available to pay attention at all times, but you don't actually have to pay attention at all times. And so you have really good driver monitoring system and a car that
mhm.
knows when it's getting into a situation where it needs assistance. Then you have this ability to give the driver back some of their energy and yeah, some of their attention.
Nice. It's almost like when the car, it'll beep, pretty loud beep if you're accelerating and the car in front of you is decelerating and you're getting close to it. It'll say, "Hey, warning, right? Collision might happen. So wake up," and then you jolt. So licensing FSD to other automakers so that the customers can get the benefits of 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm telling you, and we've talked about this, and I've had this conversation with Jeff Lutz quite a bit. Jeff is a big believer that other automakers will license FSD, and it'll happen sooner than we realize. And as we hear how great 12.3 is, and as now we heard that Elon said that it's going to progress even faster, it's crazy that an automaker doesn't jump the line and get in first, because this is software and hardware. It's not something that, it's like not something that Tesla can just turn on for many, many partners. The first one who jumps, they'll get preferential treatment and the others will be behind, and it'll take them years. So they need to kind of line up now. Um,
Yeah. It's
you
gonna be
know,
hard because one of the things that we see with Tesla is that the software is very, very, very hardware dependent. So the Cybertruck does not have the same features right now that a Hardware 3 Model 3 has. And Hardware 4 kind of lags behind Hardware 3. And so not only the exact hardware, but even the locations of the sensors on the vehicle make a difference. And because of those facts, I think it's going to be very difficult for an automaker to adopt Tesla, like to license this from Tesla in a short period of time. They can't, once they realize that they need to do it, they can start buying the computers and the sensors, putting them in the locations that they need to be, but it's going to take a number of years from when they make the decision to when they finally are able to deliver that functionality to customers, which is going to create, huge arbitrage in the marketplace for other people trying to offer other cobbled together solutions in the interim.
exactly. And that's why if I was the automaker, I don't need to wait to see, oh, Tesla solved
No, yeah,
robotaxi. They just need to
they should
go,
be doing it
okay,
2 years ago.
yeah, but no, even that's fair, because even 2 years ago, they might go, who knows? It was a gamble.
Mhm.
But at this point, you can already see the rate of progress, what it's achieved now. So if it's going to take me 2 years before I can actually have it in my car, it's a safer bet that by that point, it will be to the point that I need it. I know I need it. So I better strike a deal today. Like the rate
Let's
of
couch
progress
it
was
this
fast.
way. If GM had pioneered this contract with Tesla instead of buying Cruise,
Cruise. Yep.
their vehicle fleet, they would have spent less money and they would have gotten a lot more value.
And people would not, the stock would be significantly higher, because the reason why their stock is so low is because people realize that they not only they to transition from ICE to EV, but they could actually be obsolete in the future. Okay, so the next two are the ones that we've all been talking about, right? Which is robotaxi. Number 6, the creation of new robotaxi service. Of course, when that comes, that's when the stock will skyrocket. and that's where the value is. But number 7 is once you have autonomous transportation, there's all of these things you could provide, like entertainment and maybe app stores and things like that that doesn't exist today that can be layered on top. So each of these milestones unlocks an even larger market opportunity, which greatly magnifies the value of the call options. So I just love the way he did that, broke it down into different milestones, and each of these milestones, you know, any other comments on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I just completely agree. I think that a lot of people think about robotaxi or not robotaxi kind of in a binary way that it's either super valuable or it's worth nothing. And there's a whole continuum of step like milestones, just like he pointed out. And then those milestones have associated values attached to them. How is that going to be reflected in the stock? I think that's anybody's guess. I think there's going to be periods of over exuberance, and then there's going to be periods like right now, where, in my opinion, it's much undervalued. It's very discounted. Their ability to deliver on this stuff today. So I think that investors should be thoughtful about the fact that yes, it's a continuum and how much of that possibility is reflected in the current stock price, because I think that's where you kind of get your opportunities to buy something at a discount that's going to be hugely valuable.
And like we said, just like the automakers should partner license FSD, as investors, we got to think the same way. If it's going to be inevitable in 2 years, then we want to get in now. And here's the latest news. Teslascope has their software installed by many Tesla car owners, and that's why they know this. What kind of software is being installed in Tesla cars? They said another wave of full self-driving version 12.3 just went out this morning to more vehicles within the last 5 minutes. So they can see that this is coming out fast. What's your thinking about the rate of how fast will 12.3 be released? I think the last number, and I don't know how accurate this is, but it was like 3% of the 400,000 plus people that have beta or have gotten 12.3.
And that was before the last two waves. I think what I saw Omar saying was that he estimated that roughly 10% of beta testers had 12.3 now. And so that's very exciting. We saw the geographical expansion. So it's not just cars in California anymore. We've got cars all across the United States that are having access. So that's a huge, you want to see more people get access, but you also want to see more people in more places. So that part, we're there. And now it's just how long does it take for us to get from, we'll just say that it's roughly 10% today, from that to the full 100% of beta testers having access to download 12.3. I think that'll be, a very interesting length of time to watch, because once the entire fleet, like, that is a huge, huge first milestone for the V12 stack, that the entire North American fleet can have access to completely neural net FSD code. Right now, everything's looking good. The performance is great. It doesn't seem like we're having safety issues. So the pathway from here to there looks like it's clear and open. And if they can expand all the way to that full group of users in a very short period of time, then that tells us that the ones coming behind, like, it's a bigger step to transition from version 11 point whatever to version 12.3 than it is to go from 12.3 to 12.4. And so I think that those rollouts throughout the fleet will actually be smoother once the entire fleet is transitioned over to full neural nets.
And it's going to make a bigger difference too, right? So, like you said, there's no safety issues. And so 12.3, by all accounts, all beta testers says they are better than 11 point, whatever it is, 11.4. And
Mhm.
so there's no reason at this point why they don't just go ahead, and they should, because it's better than what we all have now. But then the
Yep.
experience that people have, you can see the excitement that
Mhm.
happened for these 3%. It's just going to go, it could be enough, like 400,000 beta testers, to actually like go and spread the word more, how incredible this is now. So we'll see. Thank you so much, Hans. This was great show. Appreciate you. Follow Hans on his YouTube channel, Hans C. Nelson. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.